It seems to me that there are many possibilities. I think one of them has to do with increasing the conversation among those who are involved in digitization already. So it would be useful, I think, to gather not the practitioners per se, but the policymakers above them who help to define what might be done and then apply the staff and the assets to a topic. So for instance, we have done work with European collaborators in various areas. At Stanford, we worked with our very fine colleagues at the World Trade Organization to digitize the archive, most of it, of the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. It's an incredibly important archive to understand the decisions and the processes that have shaped the global trading market as we know it now. That's an example of collaboration that occurred because scholars drove the need for such a project. We've also collaborated with our friends and colleagues at the Corpus Christi College, Cambridge University, in the Matthew Parker Library, a collection of medieval manuscripts. I think that also provides an opportunity for those who are interested in ancient historic documents, images, manuscript images, could be art images, to get together and talk about what might be important, what might be useful, what might drive new scholarship and new learning. The important thing, though, as I said, is to try to get the practitioners who are already at work together. Mm-hmm. So it's not an educational enterprise; it becomes a policy and a kind of decision-making business having to do with the assignment of assets to tasks, and those tasks should be cultural ones. It seems to me. It exists now. It's as all libraries are fragmentary in their collection of documents and genres and publications and manuscripts. There's no complete library anywhere. So the World Digital Library, such as it is a statement of how far we've come with materials that we've digitized, we've converted from analog form to digital form, and materials born digital. It's not complete. It may never be complete. But we have to understand that this is part of the grand tradition. None of us collect everything. We have a big library collections program at Stanford, and I think we collect, I would say, maybe 2% of what's published every year. Still a pretty good library. People get work done there. And we know how to reach out and find materials that our scholars require. Although we try to anticipate their need, we never can do so perfectly. So the World Digital Library exists. It's not very coordinated, but we work on the basis of the themes and processes and basic rules of the World Wide Web and the Internet. It will get larger, it will get more linked, it will get more relevant, the discovery will become better as new techniques become possible. But I think to say that it doesn't exist is a mistake. It exists. I think the answer there lies in understanding behaviors. So if you can accept that we now have sufficient material in digital form to help teachers teach the young, to help students in higher education learn and to create new knowledge, to help scholars create new knowledge. If we have enough material now to show some examples, then we should survey those examples and extract from them principles, examples, and so forth, which would help us understand what more we might do and how we might do things differently. So one would look, therefore, to what we might regard as common practice, and at the same time we would look at what we might call steeples of excellence or steeples of innovation to see what's going on and to see which among them we might believe to offer some great promise for the next steps. The community, therefore, is a kind of hypothetical creation. It has to be looked across borders because, as we said, the world's digital library exists. And the World's Digital Library promotes collaboration among peoples of varying backgrounds, varying locations, varying circumstances, various disciplines. We need to look at those steeples of innovation, steeples of excellence, as we also look at common practice and understand how we can cause the tide to lift all the boats on the one hand, and on the other hand to invest in a few more prototypes that show what's possible with the new techniques. And we're always developing new techniques, and we're always observing new techniques. So the work in the digital humanities, the computational social sciences, the great literary labs based on digitized materials or born digital materials should inspire us to think how we might go further and farther to present new interpretations, new research possibilities, and thus new knowledge. Well, always these centers of competence, I would let's call them centers of innovation. Let's call them centers that provoke thought on standards and on possibilities. All of these contribute to the sense of motion, the sense of development, the sense of taking advantage of new possibilities. I think it's also important for these centers of competence to see themselves in a larger environment, a larger workflow, so that the centers of competence in digitization should see themselves in the context of the World Digital Library. What are those requirements? Well, certainly ease of access for the general user who may not have any technical apparatus except a computer screen. Secondly, we need to pay attention to how we provide intellectual access. Right now we do this on the basis of metadata that is extracted and sometimes interpreted. We soon will be able to do linked data for these objects and even semantic web techniques in some years. Third is the importance of having real honest-to-goodness digital libraries that are meant to store the original scans and then the revised and the curated scans. The linkages among objects is another category. How do we take advantage of all these possibilities in principle to inform how the centers of competence provide suggestions, guidelines for practice? But those practices always have to be seen in this larger environment of behaviors which allow people on their own, people in courses, people in their individual studies to make good use of the documents of civilization.